When you start living with the end in mind, everything starts to change. What are people going to say about you? What message is your life going to speak when you're long gone? Because you weren't born by accident. You didn't just happen to be where you're at and happen to watch this video. There is always a reason.
Well, welcome, guys. Welcome to the Fuse Live podcast, where heaven meets earth in and through you. And today, my guest has an amazing story. I know a lot of you have already been following her. She is truly an anomaly. And I have so much respect for her, especially with the journey I've been on the last 4 or 5 years, and watching what she's done and who she's become and what she's doing right now is massive, massive for the body, massive for you that are listening, because some of you are going to get set free into your God assignment today in the next hour.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah, and so there's so much I could say about her. She's got a massive, what would I call it? Accomplishments, a bio that speaks for itself, you know, and you guys have read that. But the thing I want to say is I think it's the real, raw authenticity of just being who God made her that is so powerful. And so, Sandi, I just want to thank you, first of all, for being here. And I'm so excited for this next hour and a bit.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm just excited to see what God's going to do, and hope that my story of coming out of things that people don't live through, not typically, and being able to do some of the things that I did and overcoming some of the things that I've overcome, I hope it gives hope it gives courage to people.
I'm so certain it's going to do that. And, you know, I was going through your book and obviously following your posts and different things that you say. And obviously religion is not very comfortable with some of the stuff. And, the
spirit of religion hates me. It's not that it's not comfortable with me. The spirit of religion hates me, because the spirit of religion is the most vile spirit released on the earth, because it masquerades like it's Jesus Christ, but it's not. And religion tried to kill me at a very young age.
Yeah. Can you speak on that a bit?
Yes. I was raised in a Catholic home, and abuse started when I was a very young little girl, at the time of 2 until I can remember at about 5. And so I was not groomed to understand my identity as a little girl or a child of God or anything. I was groomed with God has a line, and if you cross over it, he no longer loves you. He no longer wants you. The very hands that were supposed to be protecting me were my predator. And so I grew up terrified that I would disappoint God until I was 12. That's when I had a radical encounter with Jesus Christ.
Wow. What happened? Can you speak to that? This is awesome.
I have an aunt who was teaching Sunday school and had invited me to come over. And whenever I was at her house, I would always feel so safe, and I would always feel a completely different environment than what I grew up in. And we would sing songs, and she would play the guitar. I had learned how to play the guitar in 3rd grade. And she began to tell me about the love that God had for me. I will never forget it as long as I live, because there was a picture window in her mobile home. And I remember her taking my hand and saying, "He will be a love like no love you have ever experienced."
Wow.
I can tell you that that is who he is to me. It is, he is my DNA. Because of him, I am alive. I was not taught how to love by any of the people grooming me, raising me, training me. I was taught love from the Father himself, which is why I take such an issue with religion, because who the spirit of religion demonstrates God to be is not the Father that I know.
Yeah. Wow. And so what happened from there on in terms of your journey with God?
Well, to be straight up, you want me to be authentic? hard as hell
Mm.
because I was having an encounter with Jesus and I was wanting to read about Jesus and I was wanting to read my Bible, but the very parents in my home were calling me a Jesus freak. So persecution started even in my home.
Wow.
And as I'm calling out to God to want to know him, peer pressure's coming in. Now, mind you, a lot of that trauma is starting to really manifest as I'm getting older and finding I don't fit in. I don't feel like I even belong around here. I don't feel like I know any love other than the love of God. So it led me into being very rebellious in my teen years, very, very smart, constantly reading and studying about things, but rebellious. And,
And
got me into some trouble in my high school years and got into bodybuilding in my early 20s and kind of catapulted when I'm running 2 jobs at one time and trying to love God and hide who he is to me and still try to be accepted around everything people want me to do. And so I
mm,
ended up headfirst into a very religious church, thinking maybe it was all my fault. Maybe I've been wrong. Maybe I've just been rebellious, such a good heart towards wanting to do what was right.
mm,
And ended up in a situation that was super difficult there as well. And the first thing they told me was how mad God was at me that
mm.
I had come into this situation. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I think a
That
lot of people
situation was
can
I
relate
was
to that.
preg-
Yeah.
that situation was I was pregnant
Mm,
after a one night stand.
mm,
And I'll never forget a very wise woman saying to me, being with a man before you were married, Sandy, was the sin, but having that child was not. And please don't ever
mm,
refer to him as a child out of wedlock because he is a child given to you. And Jeremiah Samuel was born in 1988 and was truly a gift from God. And I felt completely unqualified to be a mother, completely unqualified to raise this child, and completely unqualified to understand anything about
mm,
parenting because that was my whole identity.
mm.
Like, I'm not good enough. And even if I try my best, it's not enough. And at the same time, still working through my relationship with God.
Wow. There are a lot of people who could probably relate to a lot of that story there,
Mhm.
and I guess my question to you is, as you are walking through all of this, how did this journey of business begin and you start to look at ways of making money and you start to evolve into what you've become now?
Well, I can tell you prophetically that there's only a few times in my whole life that God has given me a word that I really parked my whole life around. And when Jeremiah Samuel was born, I had religious people at that church telling me I would never be able to have a boy because God only blesses the womb with a boy when it's a pure conception. So you're going to have a girl. I'm thinking, where the heck is this crap coming from? Many years ago, but I was just didn't even understand. I took this shame upon shame upon shame upon shame. So
Mm,
I'm here in the recovery room with my newborn son, and I feel the presence of God stronger than I have ever felt in my life. And he
mm.
says to me, "This is the fullness of forgiveness for you, Sandy, and you will come to know my love through this little boy." And I'm telling you, it became a journey of really calling out to him and really asking him to parent me and asking him to teach me how to be a good mommy, teach me how to provide, show me what to do. And one of the first things that I got an idea of when Jeremy was just a couple months old is, I don't want to leave him. I don't want to go into a career and be away from him. So I got this crazy idea, if you will. I'm going to clean houses. So I began cleaning houses. And one of the houses that I started cleaning was owned by a multimillionaire. And I was just telling her, wow, I'm just like, my apartment is as big as your master bedroom in your closet. And I was so thrilled that like she would give me used clothes and I would just feel like a brand new person with all kinds of special things. And she would talk to me and ask me what my dreams were. And I
Wow.
remember one time saying to her, she's like, how big would you like to grow your cleaning business? And I said, I'd really love to grow it to 6 figures, but I'm not quite sure how that would happen if I'm the only one working. And she said, have you ever seen what a paycheck looks like when someone makes 6 figures? I will never forget this. And she said, I want to show you this. She showed me a paycheck that was a $24,000 check.
Wow.
I had never seen a check that large in my entire life. And here I am, a young mommy, a single mom living in a 500 square foot apartment with a couch that had a whole bit into it. I got it at a garage sale and I threw a quilt over it. So it just looked cool. And my kitchen table cost me $5 at a garage sale. And I was just so proud to be able to provide this living space for me and my son. And I'm looking at this paycheck and I remember thinking, one day I'm going to be her and I'm going to have somebody who comes in my home and I'm going to make an impact and speak life over them. Well, long story short, my cleaning business didn't get to 6 figures. And I thought the best thing I could do is maybe I'll start a business someday, but right now I need to find me a husband because I was so groomed by the religious community. Like, you need to find you a man, like, what are you doing as a single girl walking around and cooking and cleaning all that? You need to find a husband. So yeah. So the first man I could find at the cleaning company, I later advanced my career into cleaning offices and cleaning prompt care emergency facilities. I met a man and 6 months later was engaged and married him a year later. And I was not groomed to find out whether or not that man's soul was as mature as mine. I was not groomed to discover whether or not that man's mantle was in alignment with my mantle. I wasn't groomed to understand anything at all about the mechanics of marriage, the spiritual warfare that comes upon marriage, the responsibility of marriage. So I went headfirst into marriage trying to be the perfect wife and wanting to be everything I had never had in my own home. And we were married about, I think it was probably 2 years because I wanted to hurry up and have more children. I wanted 12 kids and legit. And I started studying this whole online thing that's happening. They've got this thing that's called the online community. Like, you can go on the internet and talk to people all over the world. And like, I didn't know what all this was, but I wanted a part of it. And I was writing a newsletter that was being mailed all over the United States to different moms with recipes and stay-at-home type things. And long story short, it was in the very early 90s, before Google existed. I got my very first computer. It was a Pentium 1 Gateway.
Yeah.
And I logged on to the internet and I was like, can they see me? Like, we were so suspicious of the internet back then. People were so suspicious.
Yeah.
And I got the idea of starting an online kitchenware store.
Wow.
And I knew nothing about it. I didn't know what an EIN was. I did not know how to create a website. I did not know how to market. I did not know what direct response copywriting was. I just thought, well, there's people on the internet. Surely they're going to buy my stuff. Kind of like people coming to my inner circle thinking, I'm going to put a website up and I'm waiting. It's going to get really busy really fast.
Man, I love it.
That business, I sought God in that business, Joseph. Like, I remember being at my keyboard and saying, God, long before Steve Jobs lived, because I didn't know what Jobs was. Jobs.
Yeah.
And long before Bill Gates was, you were, and I need you to show me how to do this.
Come on.
So I started looking at websites and getting all kinds of crazy ideas. And I started noticing my brain was, well, that's the same as that one. And that was the same as that one. And maybe that's what you're supposed to need. And I didn't know it was called trends and patterns that my brain was seeing. And I asked God to give me a photographic memory. I asked him to show me how to write words that sell and help me to serve people well. And in
Wow.
my first year, I made $30,000 in profit. And by
Wow.
the second year, I made my first million.
Wow.
And I have never made less than that since 27 years later.
Wow. Come
And I've
on.
been crying out to God for 27 years to show me how to figure this out and show me how to do that and show me how to do this and how do you handle this. I wasn't prepared, however, for the attack that would come and
Mm.
the jealousy and the judgment from complete strangers. It was like,
Yeah.
I get it if it was in my local church or someone doesn't like the way I look or smell or whatever in a Walmart I'm at, but
Yeah.
this is a complete stranger. What on earth is this? Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much we can go into there, like so much gold. I'm like, where do we go?
Well,
Before we, yep.
that led me to getting bit with the entrepreneur bug. And I ended up starting multiple companies at one time that I was running. My kitchenware business went to 4.5 million by the second year.
Wow.
And as is customary with entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs like me who have come from a horrific, traumatic past with things like I didn't talk about the fact that when I was in my 20s in bodybuilding, I experienced a gang rape. And I didn't talk about how that multiplied on top of what I had experienced as a little girl. I didn't go in depth to the fact that I actually married a predator with the very same familiar spirit of what I grew up with. And I was in a religious church. And so I'm working 90 hours a week, keeping my home absolutely perfect, and starting to homeschool now all three of my children because I can. I'm at home. I can do this. I didn't, I heard all these successful people say you can sleep when you're dead, so I wasn't sleeping. And we're making a ton of money and getting very sick, manifesting all kinds of autoimmune conditions to the point that they gave me a year to live several times.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Trauma will do that. That's the next book I'm writing on. So in 2006, 2000, probably 2004, I'd have to look at the exact timeline. I sold that business and I thought I had disobeyed God because my whole life felt like it was falling apart. And I had poured millions of dollars into orphanages and human trafficking and rescuing people out of human trafficking and helping us pay off our debt. And here I was dying of several different conditions, of which were life threatening. And I thought, God's mad at me. And I heard a very religious business trainer that I found on the internet say, because when you sin, God will spank your pocketbook or he going to spank your health. So
Wow.
I allowed that to come right into my spirit and thought that's what he's doing. I've done something horribly wrong. I'm never going into business again. I remember when I made that promise, I'm never going to go into business again. And then I'm on the internet one night and I experienced a profound medical miracle. And the presence of God came through some things I was listening to. And I sat and cried out about 18 years worth of pain.
Wow.
And was praying in the spirit through the whole night, just weeping and sobbing and wailing my eyes out, and woke up the next day with almost all my pain gone.
Wow.
And within a month, the doctor would say the lupus is gone.
Wow.
So,
That's amazing.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking one thing to the next was God leading me and drawing me, no matter how much of a misunderstanding of concept of theology I might have been in, or getting with the wrong different people in business or whatever. The hound of heaven was always after my heart. And, at that point, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do in business. I thought I'm not supposed to go into business anymore, but I would go to sleep at night and start seeing headlines in my head. And I would be like trying to shut it down, go away. I'm not going in business anymore. And then somebody would say, can you just help us with a little side project? And I'd be like, all right. And I'd help them write the words for their website, and it would explode and they would get a ton of sales.
Wow.
So
come on.
I didn't get out of business. I ended up thinking, well, maybe it was the kind of business that I was in.
Sure.
I later got a clue that God had, he wasn't mad at me. He had anointed me and positioned me in business as the realm that I was called to be in, and went on through the years to create multiple corporations, 17 to date. And several even went to multiple 8 figures. And I've had great days. I've had bad days. I've made a ton of money. I've lost a ton of money. I've met some incredible people who've changed my life forever around the world. And I've met some incredibly nasty people who, because God is good, weren't given the permission to change my life. So
we could make a movie out of your life.
Yeah, you could.
Man, before we started, you mentioned hope, that you felt hope oozing. Can we go back a little bit to some of those times where you probably did feel very alone and very pushed away by the very people who would say they represent Jesus? And, I was a youth pastor for 4 years, and I've been around this youth suicide conversation, and there's a lot of guilt and then shame, hopelessness, and suicide. It's like they're all best friends. Can you speak to that season there and kind of how you've come out of that?
And still coming out of it. Yeah. Even with all the success. Yeah. Because, when I woke up this morning, what I said was, it was wild because I walked into my living room. I'm up every morning at 4:00 and can't wait to spend time with God. I've got to spend a couple hours with God before I can talk to people. Otherwise, people just look like humans. They get very unpersonalized, and I don't want to talk to them. So
good.
So I'm an introvert extrovert. So if I don't have those alone times, you probably don't want to talk to me either. But, through some of those dark times, I was seeking God and always wanting to do what was right, and always looking for an authority that would love me and cover me and protect me. Because in all of my cases of trauma, which is what's so heartbreaking, it was always 100% someone that I was close to. It was always someone that I was supposed to be under authority with. It was always someone that I had trusted, and yet they would violate me or do all different kinds of things, steal from me, or things like that I shouldn't have been experiencing. And, I am convinced that because of the intimacy that I have with God, I did not walk away from the church.
Wow.
It's not because of the love that was or wasn't in the church, but because the intimacy that I have with Jesus Christ every day. That is why I did not walk away from the church. Now, I have come to understand the problems that exist in different realms of influence, and the Christian church is in the mountain of religion where all religions are. And so, long story short, let me put it this way. I'm positioned on the mountain of media and the mountain of business. So it is imperative that when I go into these realms, I know who the giants are in the land. I understand my enemy's playbook. That's my responsibility. I understand where he's destroying people's lives, where he's leading people astray, masquerading as good, all of these different things. And what tools is the enemy using in the mountain of business and media to do this? Why is this corruption existing? And one thing I noticed was that in the mountain of religion, a lot of Christians don't realize that religion is the enemy. And they quote the Bible verse. It says that pure and undefiled religion is to care for the orphans and widows, but religion in that word is not transliterated to the religion that I'm speaking of, that is not from heaven, it is from hell. That it does not give people freedom, it keeps them in bondage, does not bring liberty, does not bring miracles, but kills, cuts, and destroys. And so if you look at the two examples, what I see inside of a lot of churches, not all, is that oppressive religion. Paul was confounding it. Paul said, you who are spiritual, restore such a one who's fallen with a spirit of meekness, lest you be tempted as well, which means we're all showing up in the same place. So when you're trying to restore some, like, take a good inventory as where you are. It also says, don't lead by constraint. To lead by constraint means to take a noose and grab it around somebody's neck and go, to pull somebody against their will. We don't lead people to Christ, disciple them, and evangelize them by pulling them against their will. That's called witchcraft. When we mess with someone's will, and that is the one thing God said we're not allowed to partake in. And so I don't know if it's a need of control, which tends to sit very high on that mountain. The mountain of religion has a massive problem with control. It has a massive problem with political correctness. And it has a massive problem with deceit. And so I'm not talking the Christian church. I'm talking the mountain of religion.
Yeah.
Every religion has these problems. So why are we, as the Church of Jesus Christ, not aware of what our enemy's playbook is? Because a lot of us are patterning our life exactly the same way. And so here I am in business, and I'm not perfect. If you want to dig up the dirt on me, let me hand you the shovel and show you where to start. But I'm finding I'm coming out of all this trauma. I'm coming out of not being protected and being violated by the authorities that were supposed to protect me. And I go into the church looking for a safe place, and I find judgment and criticism and gossip. I remember a time telling God, it was hard serving with not serving you without you, and it's where is my out? Because I believed everything I was told. I believed that all things went away. So I believed that when I passed from life to death, that my trauma went away. That's part of the story. Your physiology holds on to it. Your mind holds on to it. And even though I take this mind that was also in Christ Jesus, and even though I capture every thought and make it obey, there is a war in my members. And part of that war is coming from the trauma that I have experienced. And so, one of the things that I would use, I guess you could say, as a preventative medicine, I learned this in business, if you will. I will not speak on a topic that I have not done about 100 hours of research on. I'm not going to write on anything that I haven't done research on. When I write as a direct response marketing copywriter, if somebody pays me a $50,000 retainer, I'm going to spend 75 to 80% of my time researching, and then I'm going to write. And so I began to pattern my life that way, that if I'm going to speak on something, I'm going to spend 70 to 85% of the time researching all opposing views, everything people are saying. And then I'm going to come up with my opinion. So, wow. I cut my teeth on multiple different houses in the Christian church, because without realizing it, and I mean this in the purest, most submitted, honoring way, I filtered out the crap and hung on to the truth. So I would cut my teeth on Hillsong, and I'd listen to Elevation Church, and I'd listen to Bethel, and I'd listen to this and listen to that, and cry out to God and read the Hebrew and the Greek and learn as I was going. And I realized religion is not going to set me free. And I wasn't assigned into the mountain of religion. My faith was birthed in the Christian church, but my assignment is in the realms that a lot of the Christians are scared to death of. Like,
We need to just leave Facebook. Everybody run to Parlor. Everybody go hide out in our church. We can't hide out in our church anymore, so we better find a social media place where we can all hide out. We all talk the same. We all sing the same. We all read the same translation, and nobody's offending us or challenging us. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get totally.
And
I
God's
get
like,
it, man.
excuse me, I need you on Facebook because the demonic spirits are there, and the ones that I died for are there. And if you leave, the grace is lifted. So God was like, I need you right there. I need you, Sandi, to be holy enough that I can throw you into a dark place that most Christians are terrified of so I can use you. He said, I also need you to be aware of what your trauma is. Because if you're aware of what your trauma is, you will avoid certain places. Because I know that might be a dent in my armor that's still healing. So I'm not going to be a useless casualty and go in with my Bible thinking I'm going to blow the enemy up, and I know nothing about his strategy. So and I don't mean to go off preaching, but I feel the presence of God.
This is so good.
This is why God needs us in every realm. He needs us on all 7 mountains. He needs us sold out on all 7 mountains. The church has got to stop having people be born again. And then where can we put them in the church? What ministry can we put them in? What Bible study can we give them? Where can we send them? How can they do that? My chair is falling off my thing here. I will get up and dance in a minute in the spirit.
Come on, man.
Again, some of us are called to that realm, but if you're an apostle and prophet like I am, and you're called in the business world, you've got to know how to conduct yourself in that realm.
Yeah.
And a lot of Christians are more terrified of money than they are even the devil. So like God gave me the ability to make millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's not just so I can give it all away, but it's so transforming cultures and changing people's lives and using it to change things, getting in there and robbing the enemy blind and going, goodbye, and going on to the next assignment.
Man, this is so big. So last year I launched a program called Catalyst, and this is kind of my message that at least 90%, I think I heard Lance Wallner talk about it, like 90% of people aren't called to a ministerial calling. No. And who's training them and prepping them for that? No, and it's actually, there's no place like that.
Exactly, because they show up and they're like, okay, where can we have a Bible study on Wednesday? I love my job and I love my boss. So surely the first thing I must need to do is have a Bible study. And then the second thing I should probably do is I need to start having a prayer meeting. Now, none of those things I have a problem with. However, if your boss has no interest in Jesus Christ, then you are dishonoring him to bring a Bible study into your company time. So now it's going to be time for you to walk amongst these people and to be known in red like the only Bible on the floor. Wow. And that suite where you're at. You're the person who, when they lack wisdom on something, you go pray, God give you wisdom. Present your idea. When they ask, how do you know that? Say, well, I did a lot of research and I asked God for some insight and I hope it's helpful. That's not the time to say, well, I'm a Bible believing Christian. I went in the prayer room and I spoke in tongues for 3 hours and he told me you're a heathen. No, that's not what we do.
Yeah.
You go in and you love. But if we haven't gotten over our own crap, how in the world are we going to love people who are wading up to their necks in it and don't know how to get out? We're irritated that the New Agers, people are turning to New Age. Well, why would that be?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, the amount of Christians who are arguing right now on social media about stuff, it's like, you know what, if you were to spend 1/8 of that time impacting people's lives, finding out what your calling is, walking in your destiny, that arguing on social media would become so less attractive because all it's doing is filling where we don't feel powerful. So let me go see if I can go feel powerful with a complete stranger with my typed words on social media.
Yeah. Man, I've experienced this on a smaller scale, obviously, but a bigger scale for me in the last 6 months. And it's been very interesting. Very interesting. So if there is no place right now for the majority of the body to even feel safe enough to explore their assignment. You know, like a couple of years ago, I felt the Lord speak to me about exploring and engaging, two things that you do with the Father. Explore and then engage and know that He will walk it out with you, right? But most churches, the fear of what if I get it wrong and what if it's not the Lord, and obviously there's not many people supporting them. Can you speak to that a little bit, to some of these guys that have these dreams and visions in politics or media or education or different areas like that?
I would be happy to, especially since we've put several 100,000 people through my inner circle. And I'd say about 1/2 of those people are believers. And many are looking and seeking. It's something, because when you wrote down the words explore, engage, the word came to me prophetically, reminding me of the Father's characteristic that He's a creator. And so He's interested in us creating here in the earth with Him, co-creating. And there's no co-creating without exploration. And the thing is that I think we need to, I remember when part of my healing, I was afraid of the gift of influence God had given me, because I knew that I could influence people in a big way, and I don't want to be deceived and lead people in the wrong way. And I remember the day that God told me that, baby doll, I've already factored in your stupidity. It's going to be okay.
Wow.
So, do you think I would let one of my sons go chase after everything that I have groomed them for, put in their DNA, and the moment they make a mistake, I'm like, that's it, you're done? No, that's religion. Because I've made so many mistakes building my business, but having a heart and a desire to want to do right, sometimes you got to walk through the ramifications in that. But I think one of the things that I see that happens in my inner circle is I get a lot of Christians who come in with their God vision, or their thing that they say God gave them a prophetic word on. You got to remember, God didn't give me a prophetic word to go into kitchenware. God didn't give me a prophetic word or give me any kind of God dream to go onto the internet. I basically just wanted to get my high-end kitchenware at a cheaper price so I could have it. I just wanted to know, how many mixers do I have to sell so I can have one? I had a wiring of coming up with solutions. So people come to me now probably because it's very much in our language as a culture of Christians. God has given me this vision and this dream. And they act as if He is going to put a new life on top of their own, like the Wizard of Oz. And
Hey guys, I just want to take a quick minute to tell you about our Royal Hybrids group coaching program. Over a year ago, the Lord started speaking to me about a group of people, a tribe that would only get their value, their affirmation, that would only get their identity from who they are in God and nothing else. And from that place, they were going to do great things on the earth. In the last year, we have seen a whole bunch of people jump into our program, solidify themselves in their identity with God, and from that place, actually start to engage their purpose. Fuse Life talks about the 6 trees: your spirit, your soul, your body, and then your relationships, your finances, and your purpose. We have seen a whole bunch of people come through this, get solidified in who they are, and then begin their own projects, whether it's a teen mums project, whether it's a coaching, counseling business, or a painting business, publishing your children's book, publishing a puzzle book. We have seen people do all of these kind of things, and we just know that this is just the beginning. So you want to go to www.fusebornformore.com/Royal Hybrids, or just click the link in the caption and make sure to check out what we are doing. We would love to have you as part of our tribe. Now, back to the podcast.
And I'm thinking, where it says be faithful with little and you'll be given stewardship over much, that means if you're trying to run a business, and I speak to the ladies a lot of times, then that means, start getting your home in order. So if you want to be able to have the discipline and the acumen to run a company, start getting your personal life in order.
like start making your bed. Stop complaining about it. Stop using your husband and your children and your health and where you live and your race and your whatever and your background as an excuse. Let's step up. It's not a God gave me a vision. I'm going to wait here and he's going to make it happen. We don't ever see that happening in the Bible. Ever. The parable of the talents tells me that Jesus said talents were given and the one with 10 went and did something with it. And Jesus said, good and faithful servant. He gave him more. The one who had 5 went and did something with it, which I guarantee you, there was a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of engaging. There was a lot of exploring, figuring it out, and came back and brought the fruit to the Lord. And he said, I'm going to give you more. And the one who had 1, I see this spirit show up in my inner circle a lot. Well, I have heard you're a hard taskmaster. A lot of these Christians walk into my inner circle and ask like, God is going to spank me if I make a mistake with this God vision he gave me. God is going to punish me if I don't get it right. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to go through all your classes, Sandi. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till I have it all figured out. Because I know I have heard you're a hard taskmaster, that servant with 1 talent said. And I was afraid. So aren't you proud of me that I took the talent you gave me and I hid it until I could talk to you some more? This is kind of like what comes into my inner circle a lot of times. I'm going to wait till I finally have 9,272 trainers that I've taken classes from. And I finally have all my questions answered and my spouse supports me and my kids love me and I'm perfectly in shape and there's money in the bank and our debt. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Jesus said, the least you could have done is put it in the bank. The least you could have done is gotten on your little donkey or horse and went over to the banker. Now, remember, in Hebraic culture, bankers are not usually looked at fondly. Actually, they're looked at like they're the devil.
Yeah.
And Jesus said, the least you could have done is put it there. Woo!
Wow.
And earn me some interest on that.
Wow. This is so good.
And it's like, I can just imagine. Yeah, but can you imagine the servant with one? Yeah, but he said, the least you could have done is put it in the stock market and got some interest. The least you could have done is put it in the bank. The least you could have done is bought a little crypto. The least you could have done is something. The least you could have done is finish that book. And so I think one of the biggest things we have to understand is we have to get out of this church mindset, because a lot of the ways that things are run with volunteers, having people in positions that they don't even have the skill for the position, but they have such a heart to serve, paying people way below minimum wage and expecting them to be grateful because they're doing the work for God, and all this crud that has nothing to do with the ethical and moral standards of business. If I treated my employees like most churches treat their employees, I'd be in massive trouble with OSHA.
Wow.
Do you get what I'm saying? I'm not allowed to pay them below minimum wage. I'm not allowed. If I get volunteers or something, I have to have an intern. The government says that my interns have to be paid a specific rate. I'm not allowed to pick and choose. And again, I don't hate the church. I love the church. I just know that we got a lot of problems and it's not going away. And apparently the pandemic didn't even help, because all people can wait for is to go back to their church building.
Yeah.
And so when you get into business and that, the first thing I have to tell people is I gotta detox you from traditional educational thinking, and I have to detox you from a poverty mindset. I have to detox you that if I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this, then I can get this. I said, no, you don't. You only get a certificate. It's called the diploma. What you do with that piece of paper is what your future is. Kind of like the gifts and talents God gives us.
So good.
And so I have to teach people, you have to activate. Now, I'm obviously an apostle, so I want to activate people. But a lot of people are stuck and using God as their excuse. That's offensive when you say, God gave me a vision and a dream, so I'm waiting till it all works out. I don't see that anywhere, Genesis to Revelation. My Bible says that God is more pleased when we go and do something and call upon him along the way rather than just sitting there. I remember meditating that. And I remember I talked to God, like, just like I'm talking to you. And I remember going, God, what the heck did you mean? Give it to the bankers. Like, banking is so corrupt. What? Did you literally say the least we could do is go put our money into some corrupt system that is going to multiply it with their corruption? Then I mean, what? You know, the way that the Bible talks about Esther, she's put into this place of leadership. The way that she is decided upon by this evil, perverse king is she's put in a harem of women. They're all made beautiful. And then he's going to sleep with each one of them. Lord have mercy. So you've got this beautiful virgin girl who is pointed for such a time as this, who's walking intimately with God, who's now been put with a bunch of women according to the standards of the world. And the only way she's going to get in with the king to do her assignment is to sleep with him before marriage. There's a lot of things in the Bible that are not taught from the pulpit.
Yeah.
And again, I don't recommend you go sleep with your boss to climb the ladder. God.
Disclaimer. Just a disclaimer
I can honestly say I've never had to open my legs in order to get a promotion in my company. That's called prostitution. But I do know that the incredible exploits that I read about the Bible are people who are full of the Spirit of God going into a place that is not. And keeping that fellowship with him without looking like an eyesore, without drawing undue attention to them because, like, they're the Christian. So, like, no, you all got to change because I'm the Christian, and y'all got to talk different because I'm a Christian, and y'all can't say that because I'm a Christian.
And I'm better than you.
Yeah. How about we just be humble? Why are we asking unregenerated people to ask regenerated when half of us can't even act like it when we are?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I get real passionate about, imagine if we go into companies, we don't have to be business owners, and we're making a difference. We're praying and we're there, and our work ethic is incredible. And we do get promoted because our work ethic is what? Incredible. And we add value to the company. That's what a paycheck is. When a company owner allows you to have a job, it's called profit sharing. They are sharing their profit with you in what's called a paycheck. Now people act like they're entitled to it.
Yeah.
But imagine, if we will, that when we lack any wisdom or understanding in what we need, we call upon the God of heaven who knows all things, and he helps us to find that multi-million-dollar question and answer for this boss. I don't believe everybody's called to be business owners, but I believe that employees should be acting like type employees. You know, when we claim to be children of God, we're supposed to have something different. And it's not just our memory of what the Bible says.
Come on, man. This is so good. I know all you guys listening are enjoying this. We could go so many places here, but obviously God's leading this thing, and the exploring and the engaging. I mean, this is so good. Maybe we can carry on some of these E's. Like, so I say explore, engage,
You said
express.
feel safe too. When we talk about feel safe, I'm blowing up his E's. I'm so sorry. How can we find an E that has to do with safe?
No. So I'll tell you the E's. I'll tell you these. So explore, engage, express. That's expressing your unique self. And enjoy the journey with your dad, because that's the biggest thing, right? Enjoy. And the last one's evolve. And so if we can go on any of that, that'd be great.
Well, I think one of the aspects of enjoying the journey and being able to show up full on as ourselves and with other people has to do with feeling safe. And one of the things that I've discovered recently, and I have a therapist because I run a corporation, I run 2 corporations. And so that I don't derail, I know that it's a good idea for me to have somebody to confide in that. I did not realize, though, that when I went to my therapist to be more productive and to be able to be a better leader and to be able to talk about my hard stuff and not bring it to work, that she was going to deal with me on my trauma. And so I went on a journey, started about 5 years ago, asking God to heal me, having multiple chronic illnesses, Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, all of this. And I began to study how trauma is trapped in the body. And as Christians, we hit the spirit and the soul, but we forget our physiology. We're tripartite beings, and we have abandoned literally the fact that God wired our body, that it holds on or releases these things throughout the day. And so in my own healing journey of realizing that some of these spaces that I thought even was spiritual warfare or not feeling safe actually was attributed to the trauma still being in the memory of my brain, and a younger part of me wanting to react to what she didn't receive when she really needed it growing up. And so when you're very prophetic in that, you can think anything that's uncomfortable must be the devil, you know? And I think one of the things for feeling safe and growing with God, and being able to be fully with him, is to make a commitment to heal. And I am convinced that at every level you will make a commitment to heal. You will, I promise you, see your life explode. There's another E. And so the thing is that I remember I built all these companies while I was healing. So I didn't think you have to get rid of your trauma and then all of a sudden you can start chasing your dreams. I believe that the Father's plan, if you will, is when you begin to chase the dreams by faith, you're going to not only enter the exploits that God has for you in that, but you're going to encounter the limitations that are holding you back because he wants to set you free. And every different level in business and my own personal growth demanded that I not only confront what happened to me without being a victim, but I have to confront the limiting beliefs, the wrong beliefs, the bad theology, the lying and deceptive beliefs that I have within me still that are holding me back. And
that's so good.
And that journey is amazing because it's never ending until we get to heaven. And it leads to wanting to grow even more, because the more that you learn and the more that you heal, you end up having more compassion for people. You also understand how to have boundaries and how to say no. Like I said on my page yesterday, stop breastfeeding adults and stop it with the codependent behavior and calling it servanthood. And you step into a realm where you are operating at a different level because that trauma blocks your capacity. Setting captives free is not just setting them free from, say, sin and addiction and different things like that. Obviously, that's an issue. But the other issue is setting people free from the wounds, setting them free from those things that are in our mind, in our body. And as I've done that, I've weaned off of all kinds of medication. I've gotten back into the gym. I hadn't been in the gym in 30 years.
Wow.
I went from not being able to walk around my block and being in excruciating pain to leg pressing 550 pounds for 12 reps. And I'm 57 years old. So like I'm doing hip thrusts with 250 pounds. I mean, like I'm benching 140 because
And the more healing I would get when I would do a session with my therapist and we do some EMDR for some of the trauma that's really deep. It was crazy. It was wild. Like all of a sudden I'm adding more weight on my thing and I haven't eaten more. I haven't taken any steroids. I haven't taken even any pre-workout. What's going on? It was
That's
a
amazing.
direct response to what was going on in my mind. Can you hear that
Wow.
or no?
Oh, we heard a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think I have a puppy squeaking in his crate telling me I'm done. And so I really believe that your own personal healing must come in tandem with you chasing your dream. Your healing must. And this is how we break the generational curses. This is how we rewrite our family destiny. Because as I'm healing, I want to go back to my sons and ask for forgiveness for the things that I've erred in. I want to raise the ceiling for them because my ceiling's their floor. I get to relate to people at a different level without pressure, without hustle, without performance. It's a wonderful thing, and it's his design.
Man, I love it. Everything you're saying, I love it. I feel like that's a message I'm carrying here too. Like, you know, people seem to love to go to one extreme or the other. Like, oh, there's so much trauma, God has to do it all. Till then, I'm not doing anything. Or there is trauma, but now there's no trauma. I'm fine. It's okay. Even though it's showing up every day in my marriage, I'm fine. Like, and this middle road that you're talking about, not to look to the left or the right, but it's both.
I found said it because I've actually saw that the two extremes are here. You can get healed from your trauma. It'll never bother you again. And if it doesn't go away, you didn't get healed. Or just give it to the Lord. And some of you, yes, going and having a sozo, going and fasting and praying and really giving it to God and seeking him. He's going to. I had tremendous healing before I even went into any kind of therapy. But then some of us, no. It is, the body is keeping score. It is holding it. And it is inhibiting you. And I guarantee you, it is hiding all the spiritual gifts and talents and abilities that God gave you.
And it's almost like unless you engage your current assignment, you won't even realize some of that stuff that's holding you back, right?
Well, no, because we create personas. Scientifically, this is not a spiritual belief. This is not a new age belief. This is a belief that has been proven on CAT scans, EMGs, and the medical community that trauma shows up in the brain. So I experienced violations when I was a little girl. When children experience that in their formative years before they're 5, the frontal lobe of the brain many times will look like you were in a car collision. It's showing it. Like your body will show you have experienced a horrific event. And so what happens is as we begin to grow in this thing, our brain can actually heal. I've actually seen lesions, 20 something of them come off my back. I've actually seen discs in my neck buckling into my spinal cord, 8 surgeons refusing to operate, and the discs went like this.
Wow.
Because I got healed. Yeah, I can't bench that if I got that problem going on in my neck. And it showed on an MRI. Oh my gosh, everything's all aligned again. That's a miracle. Is it really a miracle? Or is that the way that our incredible God, he designed us to live? He designed us to heal. He designed us to endure. So that's why the body's holding on to it. So we'll fix it. Stop dissociating. So clinically, what happens as well is it shows that parts of our brain may not mature. So there were parts of my brain and my memories as a wee little girl that I had to heal. I had to literally go in with the Holy Spirit and parent some of those memories of myself. I had to go into the different things that I was programmed with by the time I was 12 that were established beliefs in who I was and my identity, and re-identify that, because that 12-year-old was reacting in situations as a 57-year-old woman.
That 27-year-old, that 20-year-old that was gang raped was reacting to situations as a 50-year-old woman. And that's where the confusion comes from. I believe that mental illness, all, if not most of it, if not all of it, is trauma. I've never met anybody with fibromyalgia who hasn't experienced trauma. And so this is the thing that I'm really excited. I do believe it'll probably be one of the greatest works I ever do. Is talking about how God gave us the ability to heal in that, and incredible breakthroughs in understanding the brain. Dr. Caroline Leaf talks a lot about it, and things like EMDR and different things that help people recover from PTSD and unlocking our brain and becoming the people that we were supposed to be. Because otherwise we're building careers with a fake identity. We're creating personas to survive. And we are pretty much acting through our whole life trying to avoid the very thing that needs to be healed.
Wow. So good. It's a deep subject. Just in the last couple of years of my coaching, just hearing the stories, and I'm yet to meet, I think maybe 90% of people have been through something in their first 20 years that is still trying to speak into their future, is still have them held, so.
Well, this pandemic is a global trauma. That was the first thing I said last year in March.
Wow.
Because the trauma is identified by something that you do not have a control over. You don't know when it's going to end. You feel like everything as you knew it has been taken away, and you don't ever feel like you'll be the same, and all you want is the way it was.
Wow.
This is why we see grown adults acting like bratty teenagers all over social media. We got a bunch of inner teenagers fighting with each other, wanting to be heard, wanting to be told things are going to be okay. We have a massive global trauma that we need to heal from. My personal conviction is we're not going to heal from it until we act like the people of God that we are. That's when the great revival and the 20 billion soul harvest is going to start.
There's a question here. Can we take a question?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? It just says, how do you tackle a soul trauma and avoid being or identifying as a victim?
Well, being a victim is different than being victimized. And so I have been horrifically victimized in many times in my life, but I am not a victim because I choose with an intentional choice on my own to not identify as a victim. And so I have to take inventory on when I'm blaming something else for how things are, or I'm blaming something else for the result that I have, or I'm just basically blaming something for why I can't do something. I have to get out of victim-mindedness and realize that I was victimized, but I'm not a victim.
That's so good. And that's, I guess, a thin line, would you say, for people? Some people get stuck where it's like, well, this happened to me and it's their fault. And now I'll always, especially even with weight gain and.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that's trauma. Well, and it is true because some of the predators that I've had in my life never apologized and were family members. And I had to realize one of two things. Either I deserved it or they had evil inside of them. You can't have both. So as a victim,
that's a big thing.
Yeah, that's a really big thing. That one was a very difficult thing for me to process because as a Christian, I'm told to love, 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 love. And you can love someone from a distance and not accept how they are because you realize they are willfully walking in evil that's inside of them. We also have disorders that occur where people are not in their right mind and they abuse other people. And so my being a victim gives power to my predator.
Wow.
What happened to me, but it actually gave me a fighting spirit. That first initial violation as a little girl gave me a desire to live and to fight back. So what the enemy meant for evil, God used for good. That very thing today is why I have the quality of life I have today. But I had to realize that
that event is not happening over and over again. When you take on a victim mindset, you are literally living like it's happened every day. Like I have been gang raped every day, or I have been beat up, or I have been whatever it was that happened to you, or you experienced, or I lost my job and it wasn't fair, or we got, we lost our home, it burned down in a fire and it wasn't fair. Every time you take on a victim mindset, your brain thinks it's still happening now. It literally thinks it's still happening now. Because it's only 10% conscious. Isn't that wild? We live 90% of our existence with our unconscious brain.
Man.
It is a deep topic and is one that I encourage all of you. Dr. Caroline Leaf is an incredible person and resource. The book, The Body Keeps Score, is amazing. If you have suffered horrific trauma, I highly recommend EMDR therapy. And don't hesitate to fire your therapist or doctors if they don't serve you well. I didn't get here by taking the first doctor who showed up. I fired a dozen or more doctors. And go after it. Go after your healing, just like you go after your miracle. And what's amazing is I totally believe on the road to your healing, you're going to encounter what you were made for. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man, wow. And yeah, it is such a deep subject. And I look forward to the work you're doing. So you're going to write a book on this?
I am. I'm working at it now, and it's not going to be done until I'm obviously in some other levels of my own healing. But I'm approaching this stuff like anything else. I've done hundreds of hours of research. And the thing that I've learned, though, is then when I am the person going through the therapy and experience with the Holy Spirit inside of me, being a tongue talking, Bible believing, miracle believing Christian, going, wow, this is how God designed my mind to be my whole life. I didn't realize the fog I had lived in my whole life. I didn't realize the different limitations I had put on myself my whole life until some of these healings started happening and the whole world looked different.
Wow. That's so good. And again, so deep, so powerful.
We've talked about a lot. Yeah, we're over the hour, and I'm just so grateful that we've had this time to chat. And
this has been amazing.
How to find a good EMDR therapist? Type in EMDR therapist in my area. Read all the reviews. Here's a great idea, and I don't mean this sarcastically. It's what I do. God, send me a great therapist. I have a doctor in Manhattan. I live in Arizona. She put me on peptide therapy 4 years ago to help my body. I'm not on any medication other than an infusion that I get every 6 weeks, and I'm on my way working myself off of that too. And so I wouldn't give up. This is why I help people start their own business, because if you can start making a couple $1,000s a month, you can get better medical care.
Wow.
Yeah.
Come on. I know we're over an hour. It's gone so quick. Do you have a few more minutes to touch on a few things quickly?
I do. I'm just a little concerned about my desperate puppy over there who's not a puppy.
Yeah, I mean, puppy can come on if puppy wants, but if mama wants.
I'm concerned puppy may have done something in his crate that he's not supposed to.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you about, like you talk about, you're an apostle to the media mountain, and I don't know how much of the church would even recognize this kind of conversation. And then you talked about Justin Bieber and one of your stories. And can you touch on that just a little bit, on how an apostle or a prophet to these places, you might not look the way we think they should look?
Exactly. I teach a lot of that too in my inner circle. An apostle in business is going to look like a serial entrepreneur. Now, technically, a serial entrepreneur is not somebody who has a ton of different business ideas and 9 million domain names and 5 websites and 17 social media handles. It means you've actually successfully built multiple companies. And so the activation that an apostle in business brings is to bring results, to bring solutions, to run ahead of things. I'm usually running everything that everybody jumped into when the pandemic hit. I've been running in this world since 2006. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Now you're all going to be on Zoom. I was ready to leave this realm and go create something new. And I was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? You don't know how to build an email list or things like that.
You're usually running ahead. The prophetic in business and in media, and that is not only the foretelling and the encouraging and the edifying and that, but it's also seeing solutions, pulling them down from the third heaven and bringing it into the business realm. A lot of, if not all that I do, in our new group with stocks and trading and that, and cryptocurrency is all very instinctive because of not only my prophetic mantle, but because of my 27 years in business. And my instinct has proven to be something very, very reliable, because my instinct is yielded to the power of the Holy Spirit. So while that I do believe in healing, and I have a gift of healing, and I walk in signs and wonders, and that, as the church would describe them, I also know that coming up with a solution in the middle of a pandemic is a prophetic apostle activity. Being able to execute justice on the mountain of government without shame, without fear, without compromising, without partnering with the spirit of Jezebel. That is a prophet and an apostle or a teacher or whatever in the mountain of government. Understanding Justin is in the mountain of arts and entertainment. Many people call it celebration. And so what we've got to do is stop disqualifying people because of their past. Jesus didn't disqualify us because of our past. He invited us because of our past. So Justin Bieber, I have prayed for him for so many years and watched him have a radical encounter with God, and watched him produce an incredible album that went to #1 on all the charts, where he's openly praying in Jesus' name and talking about the realities of his life in a way that is relevant for his entire following of our over 400 million followers. That young man has more influence than any pastor I know on the earth. That man has more influence across any platform, online or offline, than anybody I know in the church. Look what God did. So for him, I think for him to yield to the power of Jesus Christ was probably more difficult than most people. But most people would have disqualified him immediately because he's got millions of dollars. And God needs his agents everywhere. He needs us in medical. He needs us in family. He needs us in law. He needs us everywhere. I personally believe we're in the mess we're in because God's people aren't there doing what they're supposed to do. Where are the watchmen on the wall? And we always think it's just the person who's going to come with a John the Baptist anointing. And rebuke everybody. That's a part of the manifestation of God. Don't forget all the disciples. Don't forget all the different, when Luke writes and John writes and Mark writes, it's a little different, but it's the same event. Isn't that something?
Wow. Yeah. Come on.
And so I think
good.
what's imperative is that if we feel we've been called and our career is our calling, then we have a moral and ethical responsibility to get really good at it. God expects you to. He expects you to get really good at it. Because they certainly did not ask Daniel, after the soothers and the sayers and the astrologers and the magicians could not come up with anything. It's not just because he was standing there, but because he had a reputation.
Come on. Come on. That's so good, man. We could talk for hours on so many things. This was so good. I guess the last thing I would want to ask you is the evolution. It feels like a lot of people, they go through a cycle, like glory to glory, faith to faith. Last year, the Lord spoke to me about purpose equals I am, identity, assignment, and maturity. And how that's a cycle that you keep growing in,
Yes.
So this evolution, like you have evolved. You're a different woman today than 26 years ago.
Totally different than 3 years ago.
3 years ago. And
totally
probably
different than 2 years ago even.
And if we did another podcast next year, you'd be different still. There's that constant,
going faith
right?
to faith, going journey to journey, walking step by step. Yes. Because the growth doesn't end. God invites us into it. We can
you speak grow. On like your body, so you were a bodybuilder, but now you're training, but it's different and you're doing it from a different place for different reasons.
Well, my inflammation was so bad, they gave me a year to live 4 times. I was on 140 milligrams of OxyContin and 90 milligrams of prednisone a day. I wasn't addicted. I had Crohn's disease and RA and still battle some of those things, but I began to do my research. I also began to find, I got to heal my body. I got to heal my spirit. And I need to heal my soul. So because of that, I approached all the aspects of healing, and I changed the way I eat. I changed how I sleep. I'm the radical girl who talks about cannabis with Christians. And so I studied the endocannabinoid system and how God designed us to heal and how to properly microdose with that.
Wow.
Sleep is a huge aspect to healing, because if you don't sleep well, your body is not processing your memories, period.
Wow.
The time that the body sheds some of the memories is when you are in deep sleep. And if you don't sleep, you're not.
Wow.
It's not a righteous act to stay up all night and not sleep. It's actually hindering all of you. And so because of that, step by step, I had to challenge myself. I had to identify the pain differently, because there's pain when you work out and there's pain with illness and that. I had to get the best doctors. I had to be willing to go on the journey. Everybody wants what I have now, not where I was 4 years ago when I was just learning how to body weight squat again. I went from completely competitive bodybuilding to not being able to walk around my yard without pain. And I thought I had to start all over, but the muscle has a memory. I'm actually stronger now than when I was in my 30s.
Wow.
And in my 20s competing.
Wow. Well, through all these setbacks, how did you keep your mind in the right place? How do you keep yourself moving?
I'm very careful what I allow my attention to go to. I'm also very careful who I allow to speak into my life. And I know hands down, I have a deep, intimate relationship with God. And he has never failed me. He has never abandoned me. And I ask him about everything. And I ask him for help with everything. And he's always sent what I need. And sometimes are very, very difficult. I've had times when I've had to cry and breathe my way through 1 minute at a time, but not being willing to give up. Like, giving up is just not an option. So when you make that decision, it's not an option. It's just not an option. When it comes with all the temptations of quitting and all that, those come often, like all of us. But I've already made a decision. I'm not quitting.
That's so good. Man, I have so many questions, but I should let you go to your puppy.
Maybe we need to do another one. We'll do a part 2.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Well, Sandi, I just want to thank you so much for jumping on. I honor you. I honor your walk. I honor your journey, the record that you are writing in this realm. I honor that. And man, like, I know everyone on here enjoyed this. So thank you so much for jumping on today.
Thank you. And I honor you. And I pray blessing and favor and increased doors that you aren't even prepared for yet, but God's getting you prepared for in the mountain of media. And since it is your dream to have a podcast that's like Joe Rogan, I pray that God would open the doors for you. And always remember, the popularity according to man's system isn't what matters, but I pray that you make as much of an impact as that man has. And I pray that you will have courage and that angels will surround you and prosperity will follow you.
Man, amen. I receive. Well, there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Remember to share this around, and you can connect with Sandi on her Facebook account, which is the easiest way to do that. I've put it in the caption so you can click there. Anything else you want to share with everyone before we go?
They can find me on my Facebook page or my Instagram page. And we have, my inner circle is for business-minded people. We've got over 600 hours of videos in there. You're in there, Joseph.
Ridiculous value. You got to jump in there. It's ridiculous value, like ridiculous.
Only $27 a month. It is absurd. And then we have our new stocks and crypto group teaching people how to do trades and stocks and different things like that, and prepare for all the different changes that are coming in finances.
And even that, guys, some of you who are exploring with crypto and exploring with what to do in the future, this group is for beginners. It's for all levels. So that will really benefit you. So make sure you have a look at that.
Yeah.
But
thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Take care. Sandi, if you can stay with me for a minute, but everyone else, we say goodbye. Take care.
Faith and patience. Faith and patience. Patience means allow it to happen. Stay the same, stay persistent, keep going. Faith, know that it can happen at any moment. Get excited because it can happen at any moment. You were so close. Don't quit now. Keep pushing. You got this.